Police Academy didn't become a hit by being clever. It became a hit by being impossible to control. A police force so desperate for recruits, it opened the doors, and comedy stormed in. But behind the sound effects, the pile-ups, and the non-stop chaos, this wasn't just a movie that worked, it slipped the leash. A cast that almost reshaped the entire film. A director fighting for laughs while the raunch kept creeping closer. And a hit that refused to stay contained, spreading far beyond the screen. These are 10 weird facts about Police Academy, where disorder became the design and noise turned into something unstoppable. Number 1. Police Academy didn't walk into 1984 like a future hit. It stumbled in like a troublemaker nobody wanted to claim. Critics tore it apart for being loud, broad, and shamelessly silly. Some even hit it from the opposite angle, saying it wasn't outrageous enough. Producer Paul Maslansky later remembered hearing complaints that it needed more vulgarity, more shock. But director Hugh Wilson was trying to pull it the other way, trimming the sleaziest material and leaning on character chaos instead of pure gross out. Then Roger Ebert dropped the hammer. 0 stars. Not bad, not messy. 0. He basically treated it like something adults weren't meant to watch or even review. That kind of dismissal matters because it tells the industry one thing: don't build around this. Let it open, let it die, move on. And Warner Brothers seemed to agree. The studio didn't bet big. They cut the budget, tightened the schedule, and treated the whole thing like a quick experiment that would disappear quietly. No big plan, no franchise talk, no confidence that this world had legs. Cast members have said the vibe was clear. Do the movie, take the check, don't expect a second chapter. Then opening weekend hit, and the crowd didn't care about any of that. Police Academy opened number 1, ripped past expectations, and kept selling tickets. It ended up around $81.2 million domestic and roughly $149.8 million worldwide, and it even became the biggest comedy of the year in West Germany. Suddenly, the throwaway was paying real bills. Steve Guttenberg later joked they went from forgotten to franchised overnight. That's how this series was born. Not from prestige, not from critics, from people lining up, laughing anyway, and forcing Hollywood to admit the truth. If the audience adopts it, the studio follows. Number 2. Police Academy wasn't born in a comedy writer's room. It was born on a serious movie set, from one real moment that felt too strange to ignore. In the early 1980s, producer Paul Maslansky was in San Francisco working on The Right Stuff, a film built on discipline, heroism, and elite perfection. During a street shoot, a group of police cadets arrived to help with crowd control. Maslansky watched them step off the buses and did a double take. They did not look like Hollywood cops. They looked like regular people, young and older, athletic and not, confident and painfully awkward. A mix of faces and body types that felt more like a random crowd than a hardened unit. And standing next to a production about the Mercury 7, that contrast landed like a punchline with no joke attached yet. So Maslansky asked the supervising officer what was going on. The officer explained it like it was normal. The mayor had recently changed policy to broaden who could enter the police academy. More applicants had to be accepted. The door was open wider now. Then the officer added the line that changed everything. But we can always flunk them out later. That was the spark. Because Maslansky immediately saw the comedy hiding inside the system, not in the cadets themselves, in the institution that opened the gates, then assumed it could quietly undo the consequences afterward. He flipped it with one question: what if they did not get flunked out? That night, Maslansky wrote a treatment built around the premise. A police force forced to train and tolerate recruits who were never supposed to make it. Not criminals, not rebels, just ordinary people trying to survive an absurd machine. When screenwriter Neil Israel came in, the idea only got sharper. He had seen real training up close and recognized the same truth Maslansky did. The funniest parts were already in reality. You just had to frame them. Maslansky took the concept to Alan Ladd Jr. Writers were brought in and the movie leaned into the real punchline. The recruits were not the joke. The system was. And that is how an astronaut epic about perfection accidentally gave birth to chaos. Number 3. Police Academy feels like it arrived fully formed, like Mahoney and Lassard were always going to be those exact faces. But early on, the movie was quietly building a cast that could have pushed the whole franchise into a totally different reality. Start with Mahoney. Before Steve Guttenberg ever flashed that grin, the role was bouncing through names that now sound unreal. Michael Keaton was an early favorite. Then scheduling pulled him away, just a few years before he became Batman. Casting widened fast. Bruce Willis auditioned while he was still fighting to break into movies. Tom Hanks was reportedly offered the part and passed. None of them were icons yet, which is what makes it spooky. Looking back, it reads like a roll call of alternate timelines. Then Guttenberg walked in and the tone clicked. His connection wasn't just charm, it was personal. His father had been a real New York City police officer, and the weight of that job had lived inside their home. For his screen test, Guttenberg showed up wearing his father's actual police shirt with the New York Police Academy insignia stitched on the shoulder, not a gimmick. A quiet signal that he understood the world the movie was about to mock. That detail helped shape Mahoney into something specific. A rebel, yes, but not cruel. A guy who needles the system without making the whole movie mean. And the near misses didn't stop there. Commandant Lassard almost went to Leslie Nielsen. He turned it down, and a few years later he basically played a cousin of Lassard in The Naked Gun. It's the kind of casting fork in the road that makes you realize how fragile this franchise was in the beginning. Different faces would have meant different chemistry, different rhythm, different movie, but the doors closed, the no's piled up, and Police Academy ended up with the exact combination that turned chaos into comfort food comedy. Number 4. Larvell Jones feels essential to Police Academy now, but he wasn't even in the original script. The role was created late, after a casting director saw Michael Winslow perform live and realized his mouth sound effects weren't a gimmick. They were a superpower. Sirens, engines, gunfire, helicopters. Clean, believable, and perfectly timed. So the filmmakers built a character around that talent, and the movie instantly gained a secret weapon. Jones doesn't just deliver jokes, he becomes the soundtrack, the chaos, the heartbeat of the Academy. The impact was so obvious it echoed into pop culture. The Simpsons even nodded to it with a line about going to Police Academy movies.
Except that guy who made sound effects. Hug, hug!
And Winslow later leaned into a similar lane again in Spaceballs. He wasn't planned, he was discovered, and the franchise never sounded the same after. Number 5. When Police Academy hired Hugh Wilson, it was a quiet swing at something safer than the script deserved. Wilson was not a movie lifer. He came out of television, the guy behind WKRP in Cincinnati, where the comedy came from messy people colliding in a workplace, not from shock gags trying to win a dare. That was the appeal. The producers did not just want raunch, they wanted characters you could actually follow. Then Wilson read the early drafts and almost backed away. The first version was not silly, it was aggressively sleazy. The pitch was basically Animal House with badges. Hard R energy, nudity, vulgarity stacked on vulgarity. The kind of comedy that tries to get laughs by pushing faces into the gutter and keeping them there. Wilson later admitted some of it made him uncomfortable because it felt mean and empty, not playful. So he started stripping it down, not sterilizing it, rebuilding it. He pushed the jokes toward personality instead of pure filth. He leaned into the recruits as human disasters you could recognize, not just bodies getting humiliated. And when certain moments had to stay for structure, he tried to stage them in a way that felt absurd and stylized, so the tone stayed comic instead of grimy. He still had one fear: slapstick, the pratfalls, the cartoon rhythm. Coming from TV, that kind of broad physical chaos felt risky, even embarrassing. Then the test screenings hit, and the room did not just laugh, it roared. Wilson watched people lose it, and he stopped fighting the audience. He did not aim for classy, he aimed for control. His guiding idea became simple: do not make it dumber. Make it the smartest dumb movie possible. That push and pull is the movie's secret engine. Reckless, but weirdly warm. Loud, but built on human types you remember. A crude concept that could have been disposable, saved because the director refused to let it be hollow. Number 6. Police Academy feels like pure American chaos, but the movie was actually shot mostly in Toronto, Canada, and the so-called Police Academy was not a training facility at all. It was a psychiatric hospital. That is the weird part. A film about misfits learning discipline was staged inside a building designed for the exact opposite mood. Quiet hallways, institutional rooms, the kind of place that does not scream slapstick. And Toronto shows up in the film in a second, more iconic way. The legendary Blue Oyster Bar scene was filmed at a real Toronto spot called the Silver Dollar Room. For years, it was a beloved live music venue, even holding a heritage designation. But the city moved on anyway. The Silver Dollar Room was permanently closed on May 1st, 2017, to make way for redevelopment of the entire city block. So the American Police Academy comedy has a strange afterlife, a Canadian hospital turned campus, and one of its most famous scenes tied to a Toronto landmark that no longer exists. The movie keeps feeling immortal, while the real locations quietly disappear. Number 7. Before Police Academy even gets a chance to prove it's funny, the music makes a promise the characters absolutely cannot keep. The score marches in like a badge polishing ceremony. Proud, polished, almost heroic. And that choice is the joke, because the people you're about to meet are not elite officers. They're walking disasters in uniform. That contrast wasn't an accident. Composer Robert Folk wrote the film like it was a real institution with real stakes, then let the visuals destroy that dignity in real time. The result is sneaky. The music doesn't just sit in the background, it frames the gag. A parade-level theme playing under chaos makes the chaos hit harder. And the wild part is how sticky it became. Folk worked across a ton of comedies afterward, but this is the one people can hum from memory without even trying. It's the sound of authority getting pranked. So when you remember Police Academy, you're not just remembering jokes, you're remembering a melody that kept trying to turn these misfits into legends, and made it funnier every time it failed. Number 8. Before audiences knew Police Academy would explode into a franchise, the movie already had one unfair advantage. Its poster was designed by Drew Struzan, the hand-painted wizard behind some of the most iconic 1980s artwork, including Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, E.T., The Goonies, and Blade Runner. And instead of treating Police Academy like a cheap gag comedy, Struzan sold it like an event. His 1984 poster is basically a roll call of chaos. Every cadet is posed like a character you can hear just by looking at their face. It's loud, packed, instantly readable, a perfect promise of personality-driven madness. Even better, Struzan stayed with the franchise, creating posters for the first 4 films, giving the series a consistent high-energy identity no sequel review could erase. In the UK, marketing went the opposite direction, pushing a more suggestive sex comedy vibe. But Struzan's version won the war. He didn't just illustrate the cast, he turned a bunch of misfits into icons before they ever told their first joke. Number 9. Sergeant Callahan hits different for one reason. When she handles a firearm, it doesn't look trained, it looks owned. And that's because Leslie Easterbrook brought real shooting experience to the role. She wasn't learning grip and stance for a scene. She already had the confidence, the muscle memory, and the comfort that most actors have to fake. That authenticity didn't end when the cameras stopped. Easterbrook stayed deeply involved in the shooting world for years, including producing an instructional project called Real Beginner's Guide to the Shotgun Sports, built around safe, proper handling. She also served with the California Rifle and Pistol Association, which only reinforced what audiences already felt in the movie. So when Callahan steps into a ridiculous comedy full of cartoon chaos, she suddenly feels dangerously real. That's the secret sauce. The humor lands harder because the competence isn't a joke. Callahan wasn't intimidating because the script said so. She was intimidating because the actress could actually back it up. Number 10. Police Academy was never supposed to be a universe. It was supposed to be a one-time hit, a quick laugh, and then gone. But once the first film exploded, the franchise didn't just keep making sequels. It started spreading into other formats, like it was refusing to die quietly. The strangest jump happened in 1988, when the series swerved straight into Saturday morning TV with Police Academy the Animated Series. Same basic crew, same chaos. But now everything got scrubbed clean for kids. The raunch vanished. The jokes turned bouncy. The villains became cartoon goons instead of real threats. And the show even added a pack of mischievous dogs, because once you're in cartoon land, logic doesn't matter. What matters is energy. Somehow, it worked well enough to run 65 episodes across 2 seasons, turning a grown-up comedy into something a whole new generation could watch before school. Then the franchise tried one last reinvention. In 1997, it came back as Police Academy the Series, a live-action revival built for weekly TV. Most of the old cast was gone, but one familiar link remained: Michael Winslow, the only performer who truly carried the brand from movies into episodic television. The show lasted 26 episodes before it disappeared, quietly closing the door on the original era. Police Academy didn't fade out, it multiplied, and it kept marching long after critics stopped listening. That's what happens when a movie refuses to stop at one life. If Police Academy is still part of your memory, the noise, the characters, the chaos, you can bring the original film home by checking the links below for the Blu-ray or DVD. Thanks for the support, it really means a lot. Now, let's keep marching forward. Bonus fact: Police Academy didn't just survive through reruns and late-night cable, it did something even weirder. It climbed out of the TV and turned itself into a real live stunt show that toured the world like a traveling explosion factory. Starting in the late 1980s and rolling through the 1990s, Police Academy-themed stunt shows began popping up at major theme parks. Not meet and greets, not cheesy skits, full-on action spectacles built around the exact thing the movies loved most: controlled chaos, screeching cars, slapstick panic, and stunts that look way too dangerous to be part of a comedy franchise. Different versions ran in places like Warner Brothers Movie World in Australia, Warner Brothers Movie World Germany, and Six Flags Magic Mountain in California. But the wildest part is this: a version of the show has kept going for years at Parque Warner Madrid. Long after the original film film stopped being new to anyone. The setup stays on brand. The original cadets are gone. A new batch takes over. Everything immediately falls apart. Audience volunteers get pulled in. They're planted performers. And the whole thing escalates into a perfectly choreographed disaster. Real car crashes, timed pyrotechnics, stunt drivers sliding inches from walls, and performers flying through the air like human punchlines. That's the strangest legacy Police Academy ever earned. A movie critics dismissed as disposable became something you could watch live, with engines roaring and metal smashing, not just remembered, reenacted. That's the thing about Police Academy. It was never built to be respected. It was built to be watched. Critics laughed at it. Studios underestimated it. And audiences turned it into a machine that just kept printing chaos. It wasn't polished. It wasn't subtle. But it knew exactly what it was, and never apologized for it. So if any part of this movie still lives in your head, drop a comment. Tell us the scene you can still hear, and what classic we should break open next. Because Police Academy wasn't about perfect cops. It was about a world that tried to stay serious, and got hijacked by idiots with badges.